Welcome to another English B Paper 1 breakdown. Today we're looking at CSEC English B Paper 1, January 2020. So we're looking at the January 2020 paper. As we go along, I implore you to pause the video at the necessary times to read the passages and attempt the questions for yourself. This paper is pretty interesting because there are many new passages on the papers we've looked at in the past: May, June 2018, 2020, 2019, 2022. We've seen lots of repeat passages, but on this paper, only one passage repeats, and that is this first passage here with Tolroy and Moses. So instead of going through this passage in detail, because I would have discussed this passage many times over, I'll just give you the chance to pause here, read the passage. You can see the entire passage on screen, and then I'll let you pause again and attempt the questions. Then I'll just give you my suggested answers. After that, we'll move on to the next passage and we'll go in detail into each passage coming. So pause here and read. Okay, here you have the first two questions. Attempt those. You can pause here and attempt questions 3 through 9. And here you can attempt question 10. Okay, now for my answers for items 1 through 10, I will not be offering explanations, so see the previous videos for explanations of these questions and answers. Number 1, B, the most likely setting is a train station. Number 2, D, small confined space. Number 3, A. 4, C. Number 5, D. Number 6, A. 7 is C. 8, B. 9, D. And 10, B. Okay, that's it for the first passage. Now we move on to Miss Civilization, which is actually a passage we have not covered before. So I'll be reading it and then we'll be breaking down the questions and answers. Instructions: read the following extract carefully and then answer items 11 through 20. The day after Christmas, midnight. One hears the noise of a file scraping on iron. Alice enters, carrying a candle, listens intently, and goes to the telephone. She speaks in a whisper. "Hello, Central." Impatiently. "Wake up. Give me the sergeant, quick." "What? I can't speak louder. Hurry, please hurry." The sound of the file grows louder. "Hello, are you the sergeant?" "I am Miss Gardner. There are 3 men trying to break in." "Yes, burglars. My mother is very ill. If they frighten her, the shock might be very serious." Calling from second story. "Alice!" With dismay. "Mother!" At telephone. "Hold the wire. Don't go away." Runs to curtains and looks up as though speaking to someone at top of stairs. "Mother, why aren't you in bed?" "Is anything wrong, Alice?" "No, dear, no. I just came down to get a book I forgot. Please go back, dearest." "I heard you moving about. I thought you might be ill." "No, dearest, but you will be very ill if you don't keep in bed. Please, mother, at once. It's all right." "Yes, dear, good night." "Good night, mother." Returns quickly to the telephone. "Hello? Wait at the foot of our lawn. And when you have the house surrounded, blow 3 whistles so I'll know you're there. The burglars will be here. I'll see to that. All you have to do is get here." The file is now drawn harshly, and a piece of wood snaps. Alice blows out the candle and exits. The window is raised, and the ray of a dark lantern is swept about the room. Hatch puts one leg inside. A pane of glass falls from the window and breaks on the sill, speaking over his shoulder. Hush, be careful, can't you? He enters. He's followed by Harry. It's all right. Come on. Hurry up and close those shutters. To Reddy outside. Give me the bag, Reddy. Reddy appears at the window. To Harry, he passes a half-filled canvas bag. On his shoulder, he carries another. On entering, he slips and falls forward on the floor. Hush, you fool! Has he broken anything? Has he smashed that silver? Feeling the bag. It feels all right. Hatch cautiously exits into the hall. Lifts bag. We got enough stuff in this bag already without wasting time on another house. Wasting time? Time is money in this house. Look at this silver. That's the beauty of working the night after Christmas. Everyone's presence is lying about loose, and everybody's too tired celebrating to keep awake. Lifts silver loving cup. Look at that cup. Pick up that bag, Reddy. We can go now. Go? Not till I've got something to eat. No, you don't. You can wait till later for something to eat. Yes, I can wait till later for something to eat, but I can wait better if I eat now. Exits into the pantry. Say, fellas, look at this layout. I found cold birds and ham and all kinds of pie and real wine. Places tray on right end of table. Sit down and make yourselves at home. Alice appears. She carries the candle and holds her forefinger warningly to her lips, whispering, Hush! Don't make a noise, please. Don't make a noise. In a threatening whisper. Don't you make a noise. I don't mean to. My mother is asleep upstairs, and she's very ill, and I don't want to wake her, and I don't want you to wake her either. Angrily. Who else is in this house? No one but mother and the maidservants, and they're asleep. You woke me, and I hoped you'd go without disturbing mother. But when you started making noise, I decided I'd better come down here and ask you to be quiet. As she moves about, Reddy keeps her well in the light of the lantern. I'm afraid you have a very poor supper. I can't see what you've... Would you mind taking that light out of my eyes and pointing it at that tray? Sharply. Don't you do it. Keep the gun on her. Oh, I don't mind his pointing the gun at me, so long as he does not point that light at me. Sternly. Turn it down there, please. Reddy lets the light fall on the tray. To Harry. Excuse me, but aren't you getting tired of holding that big pistol? Don't you think you might put it down now and help me serve this supper? Harry does not move. No? Well then, let the gentleman help me. Quite an interesting passage. You may pause here and read it again for yourself. Okay, I assume you've read the passage. So this is quite a funny passage. We have some burglars entering Alice's house, but Alice meets them with no fear at all. She's quite nonchalant in how she's communicating with and dealing with these burglars. She's more concerned about her mother being able to sleep undisturbed than she is about men holding guns at her. She's quite calm, she's very much in control, and they actually seem to be the ones panicking here. And we see that these robbers aren't extremely intelligent, which adds to the humor in this passage. Anyhow, let's take a look at the questions. Here we have 11 through 15, so pause here and attempt these questions. Okay, now I'll take you through 11 through 15. Number 11. What is happening in lines 1 through 7? A. The burglars have awakened Alice's mother and she's upset. That's not correct. Actually, Alice's mother got up because she heard Alice moving about. So the mother is awake, but it's not because the robbers woke her up. So A is out of the question. What about B? The sergeant is scraping a file on iron while he's speaking to Alice. Let's see if that happens. We see Alice is on the phone here. She's speaking to someone who may or may not be the sergeant. But the file that we hear is coming from the burglars. They're the ones using the file making that sound. So B is out. What about C? The sergeant tells Alice to come to the station house to make a report. That simply does not happen anywhere here. So we're left with D. Someone is trying to break into the house and Alice calls the sergeant. That's exactly what's happening. 12. The statement, the burglars will be here. I'll see to that. All you have to do is get here. Line 19 gives the audience the impression that Alice is. So the burglars are coming in and Alice is on the phone calling for backup, trying to get some help. And Alice is telling the person that they need to get here and she will ensure that the burglars are here. So she has no intention of running away or hiding. She will keep them here while the backup comes. So she has to be pretty smart to pull this off, and she has to be very confident to face these burglars and basically keep them. She's keeping them, holding them hostage in the house, which is quite ironic. So it's A. Now one might want to say that Alice is foolish because she seems to be overconfident in her idea to keep the burglars here. Why would someone try to engage and even keep the burglars at their house? But we see throughout the passage that Alice is actually quite smart. And even just looking at line 19, Alice is giving orders basically over the phone. So even sticking to the line, Alice is giving instructions to someone over the phone, thinking under pressure in this high pressure situation. She's able to think rationally and express what she wants to happen, what she wants the sergeant to do. So she's pretty smart and confident. She has some kind of plan. Either that or she's able to improvise very well. And devious would definitely not fit here. Perhaps cunning, but not quite devious. Forgiving is totally out. And she doesn't really sound displeased or frustrated here. So A is the only possible answer. 13. Which of the following is an example of irony in the extract? So irony, we're looking at some strange situation where we're seeing the opposite of what we would expect. A. Alice is very cautious with the intruders instead of being afraid and angry. Now, this isn't actually very ironic. She is cautious, but her caution isn't what really stands out. What stands out is how she's really unafraid. So yes, she's not afraid, but we wouldn't say that being cautious instead of being afraid and angry is ironic. The greater irony would be that instead of being afraid and angry, she seems to be quite conversational with the robbers. She seems to be quite conversational and nonchalant toward the thieves coming in. That would be much more ironic. B. The intruders have gotten enough items from the house and are ready to move to another. No irony here. C. The intruders are settled in the dining room and are ready for the evening meal. That is an act of stupidity, very foolish of them, but it's not necessarily ironic. And D. Alice is more concerned with the intruders waking her mother than their leaving the house. This is very ironic. If robbers come to your house, the expectation would be that you would be more concerned with them leaving. You would want them to leave, rather than trying to keep them here. Alice is actually trying to keep them, so when backup comes, they're there. And instead of trying to just stay hidden until they leave and hoping and wishing they would leave quickly, she's just concerned about her mother being woken up. 14. The best explanation of the dramatic significance of Reddy's falling and his insistence on eating before leaving the house is 2. So we see that Reddy, he falls, makes some noise, he's quite clumsy. He's probably inexperienced or nervous. And we see that very stupidly he decides that he's going to eat something before leaving. So imagine entering a house to steal things, and you decide that you're going to have a meal before you leave with the things that you decide to steal. This is obviously suggesting, making clear to the audience, that he is not a skillful burglar. B is complete madness because he is certainly not intelligent. And C and D just make no sense. Well, D kinda makes a little bit of sense. He is implying that having dinner is more important than robbing the house, or more important than leaving with the items he has gotten. But the dramatic significance, which is really the impact this should have on the audience, what should the audience take away from this? What is the audience learning about the characters? It is that he is not a skillful robber. Number 15, in which of the following statements does the playwright heighten the tension in the extract? Where do we see tension and suspense? Let's see. A, no dearest, but you'll be very ill if you don't keep in bed. Please, mother, at once. It's all right. Lines 14, 15. And this adds a lot of tension because Alice's whole potential problem is that her mother could be woken up. She doesn't want her mother to get involved, to see that there are robbers coming in, because then she might have a heart attack and die. She's quite ill. And so when her mother actually wakes up and starts speaking, then we would expect that Alice might become quite anxious. And we're not sure whether or not the mother will become aware that the house is being robbed. And of course, that is what would cause a big problem in the play. And so that adds a lot of tension. But let's see B, C, D. B, we got enough stuff in this bag already without wasting time on another house. No tension is added here. C, say fellas, look at this layout. I found some talking about food, nothing about tension here. D, excuse me, but aren't you getting tired of holding that big pistol? Don't you think you might put it down now? Actually, tension is being relieved here. No tension here. So our answer is A. Okay, let's move down to the next 5 questions. So pause here and attempt these questions. Alright, let's have at it. 16. How does light function as contrast in the extract? How do we see contrast in light? A says it highlights the way for Alice to see the intruders, but it masks her true intentions from them. So this does give us a contrast, because light is creating visibility so Alice can see the intruders, but it is also obscuring, so it's also acting like darkness in the sense that it is hiding something. So it's making something visible and it's making something hidden. It is masking Alice's true intentions from them. In what way does the light mask Alice's intention? Well, in short, with the whole conversation with the light, Alice talking to Hatch about him pointing the light at her and how he should stop pointing the light and stuff like that. This is all distracting the robbers from even the thought that backup could be underway. So Alice is basically directing their attention to the light and to the food, and she's making conversation basically to keep them distracted and keep them from focusing on important things, important ideas, such as this woman might have just called the police. But let's look at B, C, and D. B, it illuminates the house, but it obscures the intruder's view of the valuable items in the house. This is not true. It does illuminate the house, but it does not obscure the intruder's view. How would the light obscure the intruder's view? The light would instead make it easier for them to see the valuables. C, its sole purpose is to provide light for the characters to move around in the dark house. No contrast is mentioned here. D, it emphasizes the well-lit nature of the house So the candle was just a decoration. That doesn't make sense. If the candle was just a decoration, then the robbers would not be holding lanterns. 17, lines 48 to 61 mean that. So from here down to the end, suggest that Alice's attitude toward the burglars seemed to be A. Envious, desolate, and vengeful. None of these. Nope. B. Undaunted, fearless, and respectful. She's undaunted. She is not getting stressed out or anxious about this. She's not frustrated. She seems quite calm. She's definitely fearless, as we see. And she does speak to them with respect. She's not trying to insult them at all. She's being quite cordial with them. C. Ambivalent, demanding, and patronizing. She's not being very demanding, nor is she being particularly patronizing. And ambivalent is a very weird word here. I'm not sure if it could fit in anywhere. She's not ambivalent about anything. D. Unconcerned. She is concerned. She's not antagonistic, and she's definitely not impassioned. So B is our only option. 18. The tone of the extract can best be described as outraged and ironic. There is some irony, but there's no outrage. Matter of fact and sarcastic. It's quite sarcastic and it's quite matter of fact, which means the extract, as well as Alice, is the extract itself, and Alice in particular, shows just play by play of what's happening. Not much emotion. We would expect more emotion, more anxiety, but instead it's just like another day or another night. Nothing. It's like nothing special is happening. And this really comes from how calm and collected Alice is. See, incredulous, I suppose Alice's bravery might be a bit incredulous. Maybe she seems too brave. And the robber's stupidity might be a bit incredulous. But I wouldn't use it as a word to describe the tone of the extract. Tongue-in-cheek, not really. Curiously, okay, this is madness. So it's B. Matter of fact and sarcastic. 19. Which of the following is the most plausible ending of the incident in the extract? So how will this end? Let's see. A. The burglars will leave the house with additional items since they spend more time. That's very unlikely. First of all, the burglars aren't very smart. Second of all, Alice seems like she can handle herself. Third of all, backup is on the way. B. Alice's mother and the maid servants will go downstairs and meet the burglars having dinner. No, they are asleep. They have no idea what's going on. C. Alice will call the sergeant and tell him that the men are not burglars but are her friends. Alice would never do something so stupid. D. The burglars will be so engrossed with their dinner that they will not realize that the police has arrived. Yep, that's what's happening. And this takes us back to question 16 with the light offering contrast by masking Alice's true intentions. She's using the light to, show them to the table, sit and eat, enjoy yourselves. She's, putting their attention on herself, on the conversation, on the food, distracting them from the fact that the police are coming. 20. Which of the following is an appropriate theme for the extract? A. Power can be used or abused. We're not really seeing that here. B. Always take threats seriously. Alice is not taking this threat extremely seriously. I mean, she kinda is, but this wouldn't be a main theme. C. Conflict may be intentional or unintentional. This doesn't come up. D. Survival often encourages people to be resourceful. Yeah, Alice is being quite resourceful. She quickly called for the sergeant, and now she's using the light and the dinner conversation as a tool to keep these men, engrossed and distracted until help arrives. And that's it for this passage. Let's move on to the pond. Read the following poem carefully and then answer items 21 to 30. The pond. There was this pond in the village, and little boys, he heard till he was sick, were not allowed too near. Unfathomable pool, they said, that swallowed men and animals just so. And in its depth, old people said, swam gallowasps and nameless horrors. Bright boys kept away, though drawn so hard by prohibitions. The small boy, fixed in fear, kept off, till one wet summer, grass growing lush, paths muddy, slippery, he found himself there, at the fabled edge. The brooding pool was dark. Sudden, escaping cloud, the sun came bright, and shimmering in guilt, he saw his own face peering from the pool. Okay, pause here and read this poem for yourself and attempt questions 21 and 22. Alright, here we go. The first 3 lines of the poem serve to A. Generate humor and conflict. First 3 lines, no humor here, nope. B. Create intrigue and engagement. I think we have some amount of intrigue. We have a pond here, and we see that little boys, and we see that people were not allowed too near to the pond. So that could create some intrigue, but I'm not sure what engagement we would be getting here. C. Create a story about a small boy. These 3 lines do not create a story. And so we are left with D. Introduce a warning to the reader. Yes, we have the warning that this pond is dangerous. 22. What impression is created by the unfathomable pool? Line 4, and nameless horrors. Line 7. Unfathomable pool. Something that is unfathomable cannot be understood. So it is so mysterious, so dark and so deep that no one can really understand what's going on. It's very mysterious. And nameless horrors. Again, nameless is suggesting, a sort of strangeness. A pond that nobody really knows what's inside, perhaps. And horrors, scary things are in there. So 22 would have to be A. Right? Fear, dread, and danger. Let's look at B, C, and D. Risk, maybe, but invisibility is definitely out. Isolation, no isolation. C, we kind of see some depth. Do we see depth? We don't really see depth. Unfathomable, it could be unfathomably deep, I suppose. Desolation, we do not see desolation. And it could be dark because it's scary, but that's not stated plainly. D, there is some intrigue and mystique, but not necessarily solitude. So A, fear, dread, danger. Okay, pause here and attempt 23 through 30. 23. What does bright boys kept away suggest about the boy in the second verse? Well, we know that this boy knows that if he is bright, if he has sense, he will keep away from this dangerous and scary pond, right? But what happens is, even though he knows, or he has been told that he should keep away, we see the prohibitions here, we see that he did keep away. But eventually, one wet summer, he found himself there. He just couldn't resist. And so his curiosity got the better of him and he ended up going to the pond. So what does this say about the boy? A, he's easily influenced. No, that's not stated at all. B, he's curious but cautious. This looks good. He's curious. That is why he's there. He's cautious. Because 1, he has kept away for a long time, so he didn't just go to the pond immediately, and 2, he's at the edge of the pond. He didn't jump in or anything, so he's there at the edge, very curious, but he's still acting cautiously. See, his parents are always watching to see if he behaves. This is not mentioned at all. His friends are adventurous. This is mentioned, so B. 23B. 24. What does the poet achieve in the phrase fixed in fear, line 10? The small boy fixed in fear kept off. A personification of the terror the boy is experiencing. So being fixed in fear isn't personifying anything. Creation of a metaphor to portray the fixation of the boy. What fixation are they talking about? That doesn't make sense. C. Use of an alliterative device that reinforces the crippling effect of fear. Fixed in fear. Alliteration used, which is reinforcing the fear he's feeling, and the crippling effect, which means he's so fearful that he's basically paralyzed, he can't move, and that goes back to the word fixed. So C sounds good so far. D. Development of a simile, no simile. Answer C. 25. Which of the following lines signals a change in the mood of the poem? A. Just swallowed men and animals just so, line 5. Is there any change here? We're talking about how scared the pond is, and we continue talking about how scared the pond is, so no change. 8. Bright boys kept away. In line 8, we're talking about how scared the pond is, and so this boy avoids, well, all bright boys avoid the pond, which isn't a change. C. Till one wet summer, line 11. This is where a change in mood happens, because all along we're talking about how scared the pond is and how people should keep away from it. However, this is where things change, the mood, the narrative shifts, and now we see that the boy finds himself at the edge of the pond. So C is a good pick. What about D? Shimmering in guilt, line 16. Nothing is changing down here because he is already at the pond. Basically, he would already be feeling that sense of guilt for being at the forbidden place. So the change comes with till one wet summer. C. 26. Which of the following is the best explanation for the poet's repetition of pool in unfathomable pool, line 11, and brooding pool, line 14, and the pool, line 17? So we have pool repeated. Actually, unfathomable pool is in line 4, so that must be an error by CSEC. Yeah, so that should be line 4. CSEC, come on. So unfathomable pool, and then brooding pool, line 14 here, and then line 17 we have the pool at the end. So why is this repeated so much? A. Listing the many attempts the speaker makes to visit the pond. That's not true. He only makes this one attempt down at the end. B. Reinforcing of the title by giving details about the pond. These don't all give details about the pond. The last pool here isn't giving any details about the pond. C. Emphasizing the fables told daily by the old people to the children. This makes sense. The people keep talking about the pool this, the pool that, and so the pool is mentioned many times to basically highlight how much people are talking about the pool. So C makes sense. D. Stating the specific location of the village. That is not stated. So our answer is C. 27. Lines 12 to 13 are effective because they A. Reinforce the inclination to break the rules. Yeah, this doesn't do that. B. Highlight the anxiety and love for adventure. No love for adventure here. Evoke a sense of danger and wonder at the forbidden. Paths muddy, slippery. So we're seeing the idea of approaching something, and we see like a treacherous, precarious path, the muddy path and slippery, so a bit of danger. You might fall, you might hurt yourself, might be foreshadowing that something bad's gonna happen. He found himself at the fabled edge, the edge of the pool. Fabled because it is the subject of so many stories and so many warnings. So C is a good answer. And D is madness. So we have C. 28. Which of the following figurative devices best describes the phrase brooding pool in line 14? So it's here, the brooding pool was dark. What does it mean to brood? Well, this has a couple of meanings, but the one that we can apply here is to contemplate or to think deeply, especially in like a melancholic or even an anxious kind of sense. And this is reflecting how people actually thought about the pool. So the pool is being personified. So it's D. And these don't make sense. 29. The language of the poem can best be described as formal and old-fashioned, not at all. Practical, nope. Informal and conversational, yeah, I can see that. Engaging and ungrammatical. This isn't how we would describe the language of a poem. And it is engaging, but this is a very weird descriptor. So it's C, informal and conversational. This feels like, like a story being told to us by one of the villagers or perhaps by the boy himself. So it's informal and it's conversational. Okay, last one here. Which of the following themes is explored by the poem? A, disobedience and tragedy. We do kind of see some disobedience with the boy approaching the forbidden pool, but there's no tragedy. We don't see anything bad happen to the boy. Confronting guilt and fears. We see that the boy does feel guilty for being at the forbidden place, and he is fearful of the pool, but he faces that fear by approaching it. Childhood fears and disillusionment. We see childhood fears, but we do not see disillusionment. Guilt and its crippling consequences. We do not see the consequences, so it's B. That's it for the pond. Here we have another poem, The Writer. In her room at the prow of the house, where light breaks and the windows are tossed with linden, my daughter is writing a story. I pause in the stairwell, hearing from her shut door a commotion of typewriter keys like a chain hauled over a gunwale. Young as she is, the stuff of her life is a great cargo, and some of it heavy. I wish her a lucky passage. But now it is she who pauses, as if to reject my thought and its easy figure. A stillness greatens, in which the whole house seems to be thinking. And then she is at it again, with a bunched clamor of strokes, and again is silent. I remember the dazed starling which was trapped in that very room 2 years ago. How we stole in, lifted a sash and retreated, not to affright it. And how for a helpless hour, through the crack of the door, we watched the sleek, wild, dark, and iridescent creature batter against the brilliance, drop like a glove to the hard floor or the desktop, and wait then, humped and bloody, for the wits to try it again, and how our spirits rose when, suddenly sure, it lifted off a chair back, beating a smooth course for the right window, and clearing the sill of the world. It is always a matter, my darling, of life or death, as I had forgotten. I wish what I wished you before, but harder. Okay, pause. Read this poem and attempt questions 31 to 36. Okay, let's do it. Stanza 1 creates the image of a. So in her room at the prow of the house, where light breaks and the windows are tossed with linden, my daughter is writing a story. Linden, by the way, is a type of tree, or the wood of that tree. Okay, so what is the scenery? What is the imagery here? And we're going to speed up and just highlight the answers. So we're at C. Room, windows covered with plants, and a girl writing her story. We see the room here. We see the windows covered with plants, the girl writing a story. Yeah, easy. 32. The phrase a commotion of typewriter keys is effective because it, answer B, reproduces disorder and discontent in the pace of writing. So this girl is there typing a story, but there is like a chaos to the writing. You know, the clamor of keys, the typewriter keys, she's banging at the keys. And we can hear that in the commotion. A commotion is like a loud noise or an uproar. 33, like a chain hauled over a gunwale. Line 6 captures the gunwale is a part of a ship, and it's like a chain is hauled over it. And we know a chain is very noisy, it's heavy, it's metallic. And so if it is flung over the gunwale, if it's flung over a part of a ship, then it's going to be very noisy. It's going to be quite a clamor. So it's basically in conjunction with the phrasing here, a commotion of typewriter keys. Okay, 34. The bird's situation, stanzas 6 to 10, is used to comment on the human condition as it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they remember a bird that got trapped in this room that the daughter is in, and it eventually it was like battered and bruised, but it eventually struggled until it got up, and it ended up flying away. It escaped. So this whole recollection of the bird struggling and eventually flying away and escaping is showing that pain, struggle, and eventual success can become a universal and celebrated experience. The bird experienced that by struggling and then escaping, and basically the daughter can also experience that. Struggling now perhaps, and perhaps success will come later. 35. Which of the following best describes the speaker's attitude to his daughter? And I think this one is obvious. A. Respectful and protective. He respects, for one, his daughter's struggle, his daughter's life and what she has to bear. Even though she's young, she's managing a great deal. She's dealing with a lot. And just as he wished for the bird to escape, the bird that he remembers, he wishes the same for his daughter. Right? He wishes that his daughter will overcome whatever her struggles are. The struggle might even be in whatever she's writing, who knows? But he wishes that she will be okay and be successful in the end. So he's protective and respectful. He is observant. He watches, he observes his daughter and takes note of what's happening, but he's not authoritative. He's not indifferent. He's not judgmental or thoughtless. 36. The best explanation of the function of the whole house seems to be thinking. Line 13 is that. Okay, let's see. But no, it is she who pauses as if to reject my thought and its easy figure. A stillness greatens in which the whole house seems to be thinking. So what does this mean? So just before all of this, we had the clamor of the typewriter keys. We have the commotion, like a chain hauled over a gunwale. And now, the whole house seems to be thinking. So the house has fallen quiet. So the noise has stopped suddenly. And now it's like the house is thinking. And here we see like this contrast, this interchange or interplay between the noise and the silence. So it has to be D. It heightens the contrast with the typewriter in action and the quietness of thought. Okay, pause here, answer 37 through 40. Okay, 37. Which of the following adjectives best describe the bird in stanzas 7 and 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 and 8 here. And retreated, not to affright it. Helpless. Sleek, wild, dark, iridescent. So we do get all of these descriptors: dazzling, dark, and wild. We see the dark and wild, and sleek and iridescent give us the dazzling. We don't see gray, we don't see unique, we do not see angry, we do not see curious. Okay, 38. Which of the following is the best example of an extended metaphor in the poem? So where do we see a metaphor extending over many lines or even stanzas, or even throughout the entire poem? That answer is C, a voyage which compares the challenges of growing up to a journey at sea with all the dangers. So since the poem's beginning, we're getting the idea that they're on a ship, and even at the end here we're seeing more ship references. So it's like the father and daughter are on a ship, and they're taking this journey, and that is really representing this girl's journey, or this young woman's journey through life. And of course, her father wants her to have a safe passage. So that is a metaphor that runs through the entire poem. 39. Which of the following figurative devices best describes the phrase, her life is a great cargo? Line 8. And beating a smooth course for the right window. Very clearly, metaphor. Her life isn't literally a great cargo, but this is just within that extended metaphor of life being like a journey at sea. And we see more of that kind of naval journey metaphor in line 29, with the bird beating a smooth course for the right window. 40. Which of the following is an example of contrast in the poem? The answer is D, the daughter's youth and the burden of her life experiences. It says here, young as she is, so even though she's young, the stuff of her life is a great cargo. So being young, we wouldn't necessarily expect her to have, stress to deal with, but the contrast is, even though she's young, she is perhaps bearing the weight that adults usually have to bear. And that's it for the writer. Whew, this is a long one though. Okay, forgive me, but I'll ask you to just pause and read this for yourself. I will not be reading this passage, so pause this and read it. So pause this and read it for yourself. Okay, go ahead and pause again and attempt 41 through 46. Okay, we're going to pick up the pace. We're going to move a bit faster from here on out. The main purpose of the opening paragraph is to explain what? Answer C, how the narrator was displaced by leader Bev. You see here, I can't remember how Bev and I became friends, but I remember at first being displaced by her as leader. Very, very clearly stated. She was like the ringleader, the girl who kind of ran things, and then this new person came, Bev, and kind of took over her spot. The whole paragraph supports this. 41. The most significant difference between the Lyons household and the narrators is the answer B, vast freedom exercised by members in the Lyons household. There are several examples, but we'll just look at one or two. Unlike my house, where somebody was always correcting you for sitting down bad or common behavior, the Lyons were a marvelously free and uninhibited people. They yelled at each other, screamed, blah blah blah, so they could do whatever they wanted to, right? They were free to behave anyhow. 43. The description of the Lyons house and family reveals primarily that the narrator, B, clearly she has an observant, perceptive, and precocious personality. She's able to read people, she's able to read situations, observe, see what's happening. She's aware of what's going on. Yeah, that's pretty much it. She describes in detail how everyone in the family operates, and how their family, the Lyons family, is different from her family. So she's quite observant. 44. Which of the following words best describe the different personalities of Bev and the narrator respectively? So Bev's personality and then the narrator's personality. This would be C. Bev is strong-willed, while the narrator is obedient. We see that based on the narrator's upbringing, she's quite obedient. She follows the rules. She has home training, as it were. And even in the last couple of paragraphs, we see where she wants to go out to, go to the pretend funeral or whatever. But she decides to, listen to her mother. Well, in the end, she steals out. But it took her some convincing from Bev. Because we see that by nature she's obedient. Her mother says, don't go. And she just, sits and cries about it. So she's quite obedient. Where do we see Bev as being strong-willed? Well, we see some evidence of her strong will by her ability to lead and organize, as we see in this paragraph here. And then because Bev wants to hang out with the narrator, she comes by and eventually persuades Bev to, steal out of the house. And these are not the most accurate descriptors, but the other options are even less correct. Alright, 45. Which of the following statements best describes the relationship between the narrator and her mother? Answer C. The narrator resents her mother's inconsistency and disciplinary methods. That is especially seen in this paragraph when she decides all of a sudden to not allow her to go out to hang out with her friends. And we see the resentment and the effect of that here, where she, imagines that she's somebody else's child and stuff like that. 46. In the passage, Bev is most concerned with, it's obviously D, sustaining her leadership among the children in the community. That is stated from the beginning when she just comes and assumes the leadership role, even until the very end when she's so much of a leader that she's even telling the narrator what to do, to come out of the house and stuff like that. And we see that she does her best to organize all of the events, and she's the one kind of running things with the kids. She's the ringleader. Okay, pause here and attempt 47 through 50. Alright, 47. The narrator's daydream of a different family who would never deprive her of the opportunity to attend a Dolly funeral, in line 41. That's what we mentioned down here. Suggest that the answer A. Narrator is critical of her appearance and thinks they are unreasonable. They are so unreasonable, she thinks, that she would rather be in a different family, pretty much. And this question is a bit tough because the other options don't seem all that far off. B says the writer is unaware of the complex issues surrounding motherhood, but more than the complexity of motherhood, we're seeing where this mother is just being inconsistent and a bit unfair. So B wouldn't be it. C, protagonist is an unhappy, imaginative child desiring a more suitable, richer family. It's not that she wants a richer family per se, but she wants a family that will not prevent her from going out and having fun. And D, the antagonist feels restricted after losing the freedom she had grown to expect. She does feel restricted, but we're not sure if she has grown to expect freedom. Instead, she might have grown to expect this kind of inconsistency, where one day you're allowed to leave the house, the other day you're suddenly not allowed with no reason. And that is made clear here. Okay, 48. Based on the narrator's view of the lion's family, which of the following expressions most obviously suggests an ironical point of view? And that's B. All sorts of wonderful things happened at the lion's house. Let's look at the irony there. So all sorts of wonderful things happened at the lion's house. Look at the things. Periodical fights. Brothers fighting each other fiercely. The mother would come out and douse them with water. And yeah, just madness like that. So not really wonderful things. That's not exactly what the narrator means. 49. In the extract, the voice of the child narrator is engaging because it is colloquial, using dialect that highlights the cultural context of the narrative. So this voice, this narrator, really sounds pretty authentic. Sounds like a person who has lived this experience, and it sounds realistic and it's quite relatable, especially if you're from the Caribbean. As a Jamaican, I found this narrator's voice to be quite engaging. Last one here, the dominant theme of the extract can be stated as growing up is challenging and survival may require trickery, adjustment, and risk-taking. We see all of these things. We see trickery, adjustment, and risk-taking. Okay, let's move on to the next passage, the final passage. Again, I'll ask you to read this on your own. Read the passage and attempt questions 51 to 54. Okay, let's go. 51. The expression, her eyes were fragile lilac glass above the wide smile, lines 3 to 4, reveals that Mattie is, answer C, delicate and friendly. Her eyes were fragile lilac glass. Fragile lilac glass. So that's the delicateness, and wide smile, the friendliness. 52. How does the desert landscape function in the extract? Answer C. It mirrors the conflict between characters and within their environment. So the characters are having a conflict with their environment because it's pretty dry, pretty hot. It's a desert environment and pretty dusty, and that is kind of being paralleled with the conflict between the characters. Okay, 53. We're moving quickly. Which of the following are most likely reasons the writer chooses to make Mattie adept at growing plants? Answer A demonstrates she is attuned to the world around her, so she grows plants. Plants are a part of the natural world. And 2, reveals the contrasting personalities of the married couple. To Mattie, it was the true world of her heart. Speaking of the garden outside, while to Roy viewed the garden as the site of onerous labor. So for Roy, it's just unnecessary work, keep maintaining a garden, whereas for Mattie, it's what she pours her heart and soul into. So revealing the contrasting personalities of the married couple. And making her adept at growing plants doesn't highlight anything about her being overwhelmed by house chores. Okay, 54. What does the writer suggest when Emiko delicately edged the cotton fabric away from Roy's damp, restless fingers? So Roy comes up uninvited, touching Emiko's things. Emiko doesn't like that, but she's tactful because she edges it away in a way to not be so abrasive or rude. She doesn't want to make it too obvious. And yeah, she does not like Roy. Look at how the fingers are described. Roy's damp, restless fingers. She finds him to be a bit annoying, overbearing. So it's B. 55. The writer uses the wilting zinnias and the new weeds in the backyard, line 28, to suggest that Mattie is A, ill and perhaps dying. So on 2 levels here, the wilting flowers and the weeds could kind of symbolize Mattie's own life wilting away, and the more literal implication is that she is so unwell that she's unable to go outside and tend to her garden. We know how much she loves her garden. So if she's unable to do anything about that, then she must be quite unwell. 56. Roy and Mattie's views of the garden suggest that it is a metaphor which comments on the B, couples' different life approaches. We already mentioned that. We talked about that before. 57. Which figurative device is used in the expression her eyes as hard as agate, which is a kind of stone, a gemstone, and this is an obvious simile. Something is as something as something. Okay. 58. Which tone does Emiko use in explaining the history of her name to Roy? That's she's assertive and indignant. And let's briefly look at that. We see Roy here being as annoying as ever, not being able to call her name properly. He calls her Emily, but her name is Emiko. My name is Emiko, she said quietly, her eyes as hard as agate. So she's quite indignant. She doesn't take lightly to someone messing up her name. And she's quite assertive in how she, corrects him and tells her about the history of the name. Yeah. 59. The major theme arising from the interaction between Emiko and Roy is B. Personal identity. Even with the whole name thing. And last one, what attitude and values does Emiko consistently demonstrate? That would be B. Respect for her personal history and her physical and spiritual worlds. Okay, that's it. This has been a very long video, but we've made it to the end. If you have any comments, especially, I know that I rushed through some of the latter questions. So if you have any comments, if you need clarifications on anything, just let me know. Okay, that's it for now.